He mocked the noise. A black waitress signed back, and suddenly the boardroom fell silent. The rain hit the glass walls like 100 small drums. The Coal Tower boardroom sat on the 42nd floor, high above the city. The carpet was dark like storm water. The table was long and cold. Suits lined both sides like soldiers. At the head sat Ethan Cole, the billionaire who wore a smile that never touched his eyes. Outside, a crowd chanted. They were workers. They were families. They were students. They were asking him not to shut down the old plant on Harbor Street and not to cut the health fund. Ethan heard them and laughed. "Noise," he said. "Just noise." He lifted a glass of water but did not drink. He liked how the light trembled on the rim. He liked control. That is when a shy waitress named Maya Brooks stepped in, holding a jug to refill glasses. Her steps were careful. Her eyes looked down. She moved like someone who tried not to be seen. But when Ethan said noise, Maya paused. Her hands shook for a breath. Then she set the jug down, straightened, and raised her fingers into the air. She spoke with her hands, fast and clean, with a truth that needed no sound. Ethan's smile snapped. The executives went still, and the rain, the crowd, the hum of the building, all of it felt quiet. In that first moment of shock, no one knew who Maya was. No one understood how she had just touched a part of Ethan that money could not guard. Maya's fingers spelled a short sentence in American Sign Language. She signed, "People are not noise." Her hands were steady now. The muscles in her jaw were tight, but her eyes were soft. Ethan's eyes flinched like a child who had just heard his old name. He looked away fast, but it was too late. His body had answered before his mind could lie. His right hand twitched as if to sign back, and then he trapped it under the table. One of the executives, a woman named Lydia Shaw, watched closely. She saw the truth flicker across Ethan's face. Recognition. She took a slow breath and set down her pen. "Mr. Cole?" she said, but he didn't answer. He stared at Maya as if she had walked into the room with a key to a locked door in his chest. Maya kept signing. She signed about the crowd outside. She signed about the plant. She signed that people had lost their medicine, that children had asthma, that nurses were quitting, that the old fund could be saved with one vote, his vote. She signed that she knew the company could help, and that the company should help. Every gesture was clear. Every shape of her hands was simple and true. She did not show off. She did not dance. She told the story like a teacher who wanted a child to understand. Ethan stared. He thought of a small kitchen many years ago. He thought of hands across a table signing, "Eat your soup before it is cold." He thought of a woman who smelled like oranges and soap, who spoke in a language the world did not see. That woman was his mother, Helen, born deaf, fierce, and kind. He had hidden her from the cameras and, little by little, from himself. He had told himself it was to protect her. He had told himself the world did not need to know. He had told himself that sound was power and silence was weakness. He had told himself 1,000 smooth lies until he could call people noise and feel nothing at all. The room waited. Ethan cleared his throat. "Miss," he said to Maya, "you are here to pour water." His voice was gentle, but the air behind it was sharp. "This is a private meeting." He glanced at security near the door. A guard shifted his weight, but Lydia raised her hand. "She can finish," Lydia said. Her tone was even. She looked at Ethan, then back at Maya. "Please continue." In words. For those who don't sign. Maya's chest rose and fell. She nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Her voice was soft but steady. "My name is Maya Brooks. I work in catering on this floor in the mornings. In the afternoons, I work part-time at the Lakeview Clinic on Harbor Street. I learned sign from my old neighbor, Mrs. Lena, when I was a child. I am not trying to cause trouble, I heard Mr. Cole call people noise. I could not hold that in." She pointed toward the windows. "Those people are worried. The plant closure will break more than jobs. It will break the health fund. It will break lives. The company can choose a different way." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He stood, slow and deliberate. He was tall. His suit fit like a second skin. He walked to the window and stared at the gray river, the bridge, the small bright dots of umbrellas below. "We run numbers here, not fairy tales," he said. He turned back. The plant is old. The cost is high. The return is low. The fund is a mess. Facts. He tapped the table. This board is not a counseling group. He wanted to end it there. He wanted his people to nod and the guards to step forward and the day to fall back into its neat lines. But Maya did not move. She looked at him with a kind of quiet pity that made his chest tighten. Then she signed again, just 2 words. You remember. He knew what she meant. He hated that she was right. His mouth went dry. In his mind, he was 9 years old again, standing in the back row of a school gym. His mother sat alone on a folding chair. Parents around her talked and laughed. They did not face her. They did not sign. They did not write. She sat with her hands in her lap, straight and proud, and looked toward the stage with eyes that listened. He had loved her so much that it hurt. He had been ashamed of that hurt. Shame had turned into a wall. The wall had grown tall and thick until even his mother could not reach him through it. Lydia spoke into the hush. Maya, she said, you said you also work at Lakeview Clinic? Maya nodded. Yes, at the front desk and sometimes in the meds room when it's busy. Lydia folded her hands. Then you might know this already, she said, looking around the table. Last quarter, we outsourced the clinic billing to a contractor. They shifted the fund's rules without clear notice. Many patients lost coverage for audiology and respiratory support. Protests started. That's the noise outside. She turned to Ethan. You said you were aware. Ethan's jaw tightened. I am aware, he said. The contractor acted in line with the cost plan. Lydia met his gaze. It was legal, she said. But was it right? Heads turned. Some executives stared at their laptops. Some stared at the water jug. The guard by the door looked at the floor as if a modest tile could save him from this moment. Maya stepped closer to the table. Mr. Cole, she said softly, I know someone who came to Lakeview last month. She wore a blue scarf and a silver bracelet with 3 small birds. She asked for help with a hearing aid battery and a cough. She told me her son was very busy. She did not want to bother him. She said she was fine. She smiled a brave smile. But her eyes were tired. Maya paused. I think that woman was your mother. The room tilted. Ethan's hand landed on the back of a chair. He kept his face blank, but a crack showed. The bracelet. 3 small birds. He could see them, tiny and bright. They had been on his mother's wrist since he was a boy. The gift had been from his father before the man left. Ethan's throat burned. Security, he said. The guard straightened. But Lydia spoke, steady and clear. No, she said. Not yet. This was the first turning point. It was small in sight but huge in weight. A waitress naming the one person Ethan had spent years hiding in the shadows. The executives felt it. The room changed. Even the rain on the glass seemed to slow. Maya's voice stayed calm. I am not here to shame you, she said. I am here to tell you something you already know. People are not noise. Pain is not noise. Your mother is not noise. She needs care. Others do too. You can help. Ethan looked at the faces at the table. He saw fear in some. He saw hunger in others. He saw no mercy. Then he looked at Maya. She did not look hungry for power. She did not look afraid of him. She looked like a person who had seen hard days and still decided to be kind. He felt a small, strange ache in his chest. If he had known her years ago, maybe he would have grown into a different man. He turned to the window again and watched the umbrellas move like slow flowers in the rain. His voice was softer when he spoke next. My mother is fine, he said, mostly to himself. It sounded weak. He hated it. The truth was a hard stone in his mouth. He could push it down for a little longer. He was good at that. Lydia opened a folder. Second item, she said. We received a whistleblower file last night. She slid copies to the table. From the contractor we hired for the clinic billing. It alleges a pattern. They flagged deaf and respiratory patients as low retention and quietly pressured them off the plan to improve quarterly optics. The words were simple. Their weight was heavy. One executive coughed. Another sipped water and missed his mouth. Ethan did not reach for the file. He did not want to touch it. He kept his eyes on the rain. But the room had moved to a new place and he had to follow or be left behind. Alleges, he said at last. Not proven. Lydia nodded. Not proven yet, but the numbers match what the clinic saw. She looked at Maya. Do they? Maya nodded. Yes, ma'am, she said. We saw it in the faces. A father with a child who could not hear his name. A woman who could not breathe at night. They thought help was coming. Then it was not. This was the second turning point. The truth in ink to match the truth in a pair of raised hands. Paper had walked in to stand beside a person. Ethan's control began to slip. He felt it like the edge of a cliff under his shoes. He could keep his mask. He could fight. He could move this meeting back into numbers and charts and silence. Or he could let the wall crack and listen to the cold air on the other side. He closed his eyes for a long blink. In the black behind his lids he saw the kitchen again. He saw his mother's hands signing, "Be brave." He opened his eyes. They found Maya. "Why do you sign?" he asked. It came out softer than he planned. Maya's mouth flickered into a small surprised smile. "Mrs. Lena taught me," she said. She lived in the apartment above ours. She was deaf and alone. My mother worked 2 jobs. I used to bring Mrs. Lena groceries. She taught me how to talk with my hands. She said this was a way to keep promises without noise. I liked that. It felt honest. The door clicked. Everyone turned. A small, thin woman with a blue scarf stepped in, rain on her coat, a silver bracelet of 3 birds on her wrist. Behind her was an older man with gentle eyes and a clinic badge. The guard had tried to stop them, but the woman walked past with a calm that asked no permission. She looked at Ethan and smiled. He forgot to breathe. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke on the word. The older man raised a hand. "I'm Dr. Ramos from Lakeview," he said. Ms. Brooks called. She said this was important. He glanced around. "It is." Ethan stared at Maya. She had called his mother. She had brought her here. Anger flared in him. Then shame washed it away. He had not called. He had not brought her anywhere. He had built a tower so tall he could not see the ground. This was the third turning point. The person at the center of the hidden story had entered the room. Helen Cole signed hello to the group. Lydia signed hello back. 2 others tried, clumsy but sincere. Ethan stood rooted. His throat was tight. Helen turned to him. Her hands moved. "Are you well?" He nodded. She tilted her head, gentle, curious. "Do you remember?" His reply was a long time coming. When it came, it was not in his mouth. It was in his hands. He signed, slow but true. "Yes." The small joy on her face hit him like sunlight after a tunnel. He felt 10 years peel off his back. For a moment, the suits and the table and the money and the loud, empty life outside this building all fell away. And he was a boy again. And he was safe. Dr. Ramos spoke. He kept his voice steady. "Mr. Cole," he said, "your mother came to the clinic last month. She did not want to bother you. She needed a hearing aid battery and an inhaler. The fund said no. She paid cash. She smiled and told us not to worry. We worried anyway. We worry about many like her." The words were simple and heavy. Ethan closed his eyes. The wall he had built around his heart had cracks now, wide as river roads. He opened his eyes and looked at Maya. She stood very still as if ready to be punished for telling the truth. He surprised himself when he said, "Thank you for bringing her." A man 3 seats down cleared his throat. He was the chief operating officer, Randall Pike, a smooth face with cold eyes. "With respect," he said, "this is a business. We cannot run on feelings. The fund will sink us. We cut now or we bleed later. I move to proceed with closure and outsource the rest." He spoke the words with the tight smile of a person who did not plan to breathe the air of the places his choices would harm. Several executives nodded, eager to return to the old road, the safe road, the road that led them back to numbers and away from faces. Ethan felt the pull of it. He knew that path well. It had paid for this tower and the car and the art and the soft life that had somehow not made him soft. Maya looked down. She did not argue. She reached for the jug as if to return to her safe job. Then Helen's hands moved. She signed a short story. She signed about the day she brought a small boy to school and sat alone in a room full of sound. She signed about the day he taught her how to use a smartphone, and how they laughed when she signed angry cat instead of video call. She signed about the day he stood on a stage with lights on his face and thanked his team, and forgot to sign I love you to her, the way he used to. She signed that she was proud of him anyway. She signed that sometimes he looked lost in his expensive clothes, and that she missed the boy who would sit in the kitchen and sign soup and more bread and stay. She signed that he was still in there. Her eyes shone. There were tears on her cheeks, but her smile was steady, warm, forgiving. Every person in that boardroom felt something move inside them, something they had buried under job titles and long hours and clever phrases. The climax rose like a storm. Ethan turned to Pike. "You want the plant shut today?" Pike nodded. "Yes." Ethan turned to Lydia. "The whistleblower file, how strong?" "Strong," she said. "And even if it weren't, the right thing is clear." Ethan looked at the rain. The crowd, the blue scarf, the silver birds, the woman who had handed him his first language and then watched him walk away from it. He felt a line stretch from that kitchen table to this long board table. He felt how thin and how strong that line was. He faced the room. His voice was low. "We will not close the plant," he said. Gasps. "We will not cut the fund." More gasps. Pike's face hardened. "You'll sink us," he snapped. "No," Ethan said, and his hands moved at the same time as his mouth, almost without his noticing, signing each word as he spoke, letting his mother see him say it. "We will audit the contractor. We will restore coverage for audiology and respiratory care. We will build a new community clinic inside the plant campus. We will retrain workers for the new line. We will fund a sign language program for staff and families. We will—" Pike slammed his palm on the table. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You are letting a waitress and a crowd make policy." Ethan did not raise his voice. "I am letting truth make policy," he said. "Pack your desk. You're done." The room shook with that. Security did not need to move. Pike stood, red with anger, then white with shock, then cold with fear. He walked out. The door shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like daylight to some and like thunder to others. Silence sat with them for a long breath. Then the board spoke. Some were angry, some were moved, some were both. Lydia spoke last. "I support the plan," she said. "We can find savings somewhere else. We can find profit in goodwill and in a workforce that stays. We can find ourselves." One by one, they nodded. Not all, but enough. The decision was made. Outside, the crowd did not know yet. They kept chanting. But their future had just changed in a quiet room because a woman refused to treat people as noise, and a man finally remembered the language of his own heart. After the vote, the room emptied. Reports had to be written. Press had to be told. Lawyers had to be warned. Numbers had to be moved like furniture to fit a better life. Ethan stood with his mother and with Maya. He felt tired in a way that made his bones hum, but he also felt light, as if a heavy coat had slipped from his shoulders at last. "I am sorry," he signed to Helen, "for the years I hid, for the word noise, for forgetting soup and bread and stay." Helen smiled. She touched his cheek. "I know," she signed. "I never stopped talking to you. You finally listened." She looked at Maya with warm eyes. She took Maya's hands and held them. "Thank you," she signed, then spoke in a soft voice that carried the shape of her signs. "You are brave." Maya's eyes filled. "You taught him first," she said. "I only reminded him." Helen laughed, a bright, gentle sound like a bell in rain. In the weeks that followed, real work began. The contractor tried to fight the audit. They sent letters thick with hard words. The company sent truth back. Lydia led a team that read every line. Dr. Ramos advised them on what care actually looked like at the ground level. Nurses spoke. Custodians spoke. Mechanics spoke. Maya was invited to help design the sign language program. She stood in a small room with white walls and a big window and taught managers how to sign hello and sorry and thank you and how can I help. Some of them were clumsy. Some of them were shy. They laughed and kept trying. Ethan attended every class. He sat in the front, hands on his knees, and copied each shape, slow and careful. He was not very good at first. He did not care. He wanted to earn this speech with his fingers, the way a person climbs a hill to see the view, not because there is no road, but because the climb makes the view feel honest. The new clinic opened with a small party. No cameras, no ribbon, just people, and the smell of coffee and the sound of children. A little boy signed "dog" and "please" to a nurse and got a sticker that said "brave." An old man in a cap asked how to clean his hearing aid. A woman with a cough got a new inhaler and cried a little from relief. Ethan and Helen walked through the rooms together. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they signed. Sometimes they just stood side by side and looked. At one point, Helen touched a wall and smiled. "I like this place," she signed. "It listens." Ethan nodded. He felt the wall in his chest finally crumble for good. He let that happen. He did not try to save any piece of it. One evening, after a long day, Maya waited by the elevator with a bag of leftover sandwiches for the night's staff. She saw Ethan step out of a meeting room. He looked human. No mask, no sharp smile, just a man who had worked and felt and changed. He walked up and held out his hand. She shook it. "Thank you," he said. "Not for today. For that first day. For raising your hands when it would have been safer to keep them at your sides." Maya shrugged, a little embarrassed. "It was not brave," she said. "It was simple. People are not noise." Ethan nodded. His hands shaped the words at the same time. "People are not noise." The elevator doors opened. They rode down together. The city lights spread out like a promise. At the end of that month, the boardroom looked different. The same table, the same glass walls, the same rain one late afternoon, but the feeling had shifted. There were sign charts on the wall now. "Hello, sorry, thank you, how can I help?" A plant sat near the window, bright green against the gray. New voices filled the air. The executives spoke about numbers and about names. They did not always agree. They did not always win, but they had learned something. If you do not hear people, you cannot lead them. Lydia kept the whistleblower file on a shelf where she could see it, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Pike's chair was empty now. A new operations lead sat there, a quiet woman who asked too many questions and listened to answers that made the room uneasy. It was good. One last scene. A small kitchen, years after the day the world fell quiet in the 42nd floor boardroom. Helen stood at the stove, stirring a pot. Ethan set plates on the table. Maya brought bread baked by a patient's grandmother. Dr. Ramos stopped by with a file and left it by the door, smiling. No work tonight. They sat. They ate. They signed and spoke and laughed. Rain ticked against the window. The city hummed. Once, the world had felt like a loud machine to Ethan, something he had to control with sharp edges. Now, the world felt like a choir. Many voices, many speeds. Some loud, some soft, some without sound at all. He had learned to listen with his eyes and his heart. It had started with a word he should never have said, and a waitress who refused to be small. When he cleared the plates, Ethan looked at Maya and at his mother and at the quiet night waiting outside, and he felt full in a way that had nothing to do with soup. He smiled and signed to them both, "I will remember." Then, because some things deserved to be said twice, once in air and once in light, he spoke and he signed the title that had started it all. To honor the day, a gentle truth walked into his high, cold room and made it warm. He mocked the noise. A black waitress signed back, and suddenly the boardroom fell silent.